All right, y'all. Thanks for joining us for the Business on Purpose podcast. My name is Sean Stinson. I am a business coach in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm here with Brandon Gray, who is in Bluffton, who is in our mothership of the Low Country. How you doing, Brandon?
Headquarters. That's right. I'm
Headquarters,
great, Sean. I'm great.
HQ.
If that's a thing, yes, but I am
That's a
here
thing.
in the low
We
country of South
we
Carolina.
we've been dreaming about doing this podcast for at least a couple days now. And
Yeah,
Brandon is Donny, and my middle name is Richard. So we were going to go with Dickie and Donny do business. Welcome to
that's right.
episode one.
Episode one of 450, I think, is where we said our first installment will
450.
stop at 450.
That
So,
sounds great. 450
yeah.
5-minute bite-sized pieces. This podcast, we'd love to chat through. We see a lot of teams and we see a lot of struggle and frustration around clarity in roles, clarity in accountability, clarity in business function. And maybe the question you have is, why is my team all over the place tactically and emotionally? And so I posed that question to Brandon and how he coaches businesses through aligning roles, aligning function, aligning what you're doing as a business so the whole
Mm.
team functions together. Brandon was a D1 athlete on the defensive line of the Wheaton. Were you the Crusaders? No, what?
Wheaton College is a Division III program.
Division three. Okay.
I played on the offensive side of the ball,
Okay.
and no,
So
back in the '90s, Crusaders was not politically appropriate anymore. So we are now the Thunder, which is a sound. It's not
the
even a thing.
Thunder, I like that.
Yes, Roll Thunder. So that, yeah, I don't know what that has to do with this conversation, but yeah, I
Well,
was a
what it
Division
has to
three
do is
athlete.
if you're on a team of 11 people, everyone has a role, everyone has a function, everyone's
That's right.
accountable for knowing the play ahead of time,
Correct.
executing the play. There's communication, there's signals, there's a huddle. I played soccer, we didn't do huddles, but I know y'all did huddles. So, yeah, so I think there's a critical piece of sports that remind us in business too, as we execute, everybody needs to know what they're doing.
That's right. And I'll tell you what, as I even with you saying that, this idea of having everyone on the same page and clarity, you don't really need when everything's working well. Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have, but if we're playing a team that's just awful and you don't have to have the huddle, you could just kind of say, hey, we're doing this. Everybody looks at each other and it works. But it's like a fruit when you get squeezed and stress enters, or there's an emotional season. What comes out when you squeeze a fruit? The juice comes out. Well, if we don't have a setup for clarity, then the juice is often pretty sour. And we start to see that in our teams and we wonder, why do I have no clarity? Why am I in such low control? Why do I feel like I have no idea what's going on? It's because we didn't have anything to catch
Mm,
the situation,
right.
to catch this moment. So,
Right. And I talk to businesses all the time and they hate meetings. Nobody wants to go to meetings. I don't like meetings. I mean, we have fun meetings because Dick and Donnie are always having a good time at the meetings.
heyo.
Hey-oh. But meetings they're kind of lame. They're kind of boring. So I get a lot of pushback and my clients will say, yeah, team meetings, we kind of tried that. We did this for a while. Didn't really have an agenda. People griped about other problems.
Mm.
What do you see as pushback to, building a really healthy meeting culture and a connect culture?
Well, the thing and I would argue you probably hear it a lot too, is like, how I don't want to do a meeting just to do a meeting. I don't want a meeting just because I feel like we should. It's a checkbox item and I don't want to do it just because of that. I feel like that's the biggest pushback. And then our role as a coach is to help bring light to, it shouldn't be that. It doesn't have to be that, right? We've done, if you look back at BOP stuff, there's so much content that says how to have a team meeting that doesn't suck. I think the biggest thing is try to bring to light, what do we actually want out of a team meeting? Because I think the initial question is, hey, these are the 4 or 5 things that we hope to elicit out of this time that we consider a team meeting. There's different language. Some people call them, different leader meetings or whatever, but out of what we call a team meeting, these are the 4 or 5 things we want to bring out of that. And if you can show me exactly where each of those already has a house, we'll talk about not doing a team meeting.
Mm, mm,
But they don't have a home anywhere in the business. They're not doing it. So it's like, well, what if we establish this one time to do all these things, and I can show you some fruit of where that's happened prior. But that's
mm.
usually just try to show them that.
I had a client that had an open door policy and his whole team, they had like 15 or 20 on his team. And he's like, it's hard for us to get work done because everybody's
Huh.
like, "Hey, I need this. Hey, I need this." Can you imagine
Yeah.
Brandon, Sean showing up at your office every 4 or 5 minutes and having conversation? I said, "Hey, what if we built a place which is an hour a week and then we had, red, yellow, green in priority of communication. Build a communication expectation. Is
Yeah.
this stopping production? Is this stopping money flow? If so, that's an urgent thing. If it's not, let's do it on our check-in, and if it's just a nice to know, throw it to the team meeting, and then you've got places for this communication to happen. That's not just anytime
Yeah.
I feel like, either dropping a meme to you or asking about a level 2 dashboard. Like, how do I know what the difference is in the priority?
Well, in that statistic, we wonder why we get home at the end of the day like, I didn't get anything done today. Every time you get distracted, I think statistics would show it takes what, 23 minutes to get back to your previous level of depth. So you think of an open door policy, what an awful policy. And I say that with a lot of grace to those who have that.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need to stop it. If it takes us 23 minutes, you get interrupted 3 times in a day, that's 1 hour less of productivity. And you might say, oh, that's not true. But it is. If you're grinding on something and you are dialed in and someone says, hey, real quick, that's no real quick to that. It's a 30-minute situation. So,
Mm,
yeah, having a place where you can eliminate a lot of the different distractions and noise and just kind of bake it all into one meaningful moment
mhm.
in time. An hour doesn't need to be longer. Yeah,
That's
crucial,
right.
crucial.
So if you have a team that's disjointed tactically, emotionally,
Yeah.
all over the place, how is it that you prescribe this team meeting? What does that look like? Do you build the ingredients ahead of time, or do you build the team meeting and then fill the ingredients in later?
Yeah, I think some of the approach to whether you put all the ingredients in the bowl and stir it up, or do you add them, like I'm thinking of those cooking shows where they add a little bit at a time, right? Like what
Mhm.
does it need to look like? A lot of that is based on what does the business already have documented and
Okay.
processed out to be able to maybe add, because you don't want to add something that's not good enough to add yet. But also you don't want to wait till everything's perfect because then you've waited too long, right? So I think it depends on the owner, and they're like, some people are just more social. If you have an owner that is high eye on the disc and loves being in front of people, you could probably start a little quicker with some more pieces because they're going to be able to talk their way out of an awkward situation or an awkward like, hey, we
Mhm.
don't have this built out yet, but X, Y, or Z. But yeah, the 5 things that we want in a team meeting, and this is what I would lay out and say: if you have a home for all of these, we maybe don't need a team meeting, knowing they don't, right? But first is some sort of personal touch point. We use big wins, right? It's just, hey, what's the highlight of your day? What's the biggest win of the week? It's some way to engage with the idea that life and business necessarily intersect. And your project manager got in a really bad fight with his wife last night, woke up 3 times with their newborn son, and now is coming to work. And the reality is, all of that plays into how he engages with you. So some
Mm,
sort of personal touch point to say, hey, we all got lives and we all have these business roles we're in, and those have to intersect. So the first thing is, do you have some sort of intentional personal touch point? That takes 5 minutes for a team of 10. It doesn't take long, but we have to
mhm.
engage with that. And then there's got to be some sort of like vision realignment or cultural realignment, right? We use the anchor, but that's the idea of entropy. If we're not adamantly working on growth, we're getting worse. Think of your front lawn. You don't touch it, it gets worse. Think of your body. You don't treat it right, it gets worse, right? If we're not actively working towards the mission and vision of our business, it's going to fade away. So naturally throughout the week, we do our job and we start to fade away from that. So we have to realign it every single week. We use a tool called the anchor that just aligns every process within our business that's adamant, so we stop dropping balls. So hey, do you have something like that? And they're no. Okay, interesting, right? So we do that, and then we'll always recap last week's action items, right? We at BOP have the 4 R's: it's receive, record, remind, and report. So we will go back and say, hey, last week we said these 7 things we're going to get done. Sean, did you do this? Brandon, did you get this? Do you need anything from us? So that's the third thing, last week's action items. Fourth thing, this week's action items. What do we need to be doing this week for our business? And this is not, what do we need to be doing on 123 Main Street? Well, the concrete's getting poured, so we got to go in, and that is the different kind of action item. This is, hey, we have this thing coming up, or hey, we have someone speaking at this event. So do you need anything from us? What do we need to do while you're gone? As we're doing this, we have 2 guys out in Austin, Texas at a Build Expo. Actually, they ended yesterday, but we knew yesterday and today our calendars had to be a little more free in case they had some overflow meetings they couldn't fit. That's an action item. Hey, go in and clear your calendar for these 2 days, whatever it would be. And then the last one is some sort of training, right? And when we say training, that's not bringing in a professional ladder guy to tell you how to use a ladder. right? I mean, that'd be
Mm,
cool. I'm
mm.
sure those people exist,
Clicks,
but
click,
the training is
click.
more of that, right? You got to make the little ledge go over so it
Mm-hmm.
catches. Yeah, the
You
rope that
catch it.
gets entangled and seems more
Mm-hmm.
dangerous than helpful. When we say training, it's what's a 5 minute conversation you want to be able to have with your team. Maybe you want to reinforce your paid time off expectations. Maybe you want to reinforce, hey, this is what safety looks like on a job site. Whatever it could be, it can span so many different ways, but some sort of personal touch point, some sort of vision, mission realignment, and then action items from last week, action items from this week, and then some sort of training. Those are those 5 elements. If you can show me a home for those right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Yep.
we maybe don't need to do a team
Love
meeting.
it. But what if you could do it in a 59-minute version and know
Yeah.
that your week is set and your people are aligned? I love that. I tell clients all the time, hey, what if you trained on every step of your construction process every 2 weeks? And so 4 times a year, you've reviewed your foundation
Mm,
process, your checklist, you're checking your square, you're checking, before you got a framing package delivered, you know that your foundation is tight. You review that four
right.
times a year. You bring a superintendent in at any point, and there's not this massive training at the front. You work through it over the year, and they're just catching up to the speed of your
Yep.
team. So people
And I
love
think
the
you and I,
idea, but they're like, well, that sounds great in theory, but we can't do it. I'm like, why not? Just do it.
yeah, and so I apologize for interrupting you there, but you and I are products of that type of system. We both started and we didn't start when BOP started. So we came
Mhm.
in and we sat in these meetings with lingo we'd never heard before, with tools we'd never heard before. Hey, how do we talk about a multifaceted invoicing system within a level 2 dashboard? And you and I are like, vision story.
Seeing stars,
I've looked at the vision
drowning.
story template
Uh-huh.
one time. Right. But
Mhm.
you catch up in that, what is it, learning by just being proximity, right? You just learn and you
Mhm.
pick up things, and then when you actually go to learn level 2 dashboard and you go to coach on it and you have someone that has multiple invoice systems and you're like, oh my gosh, it's all connecting, it works, it just
Yeah.
works. So
So I've got personal, culture, recap, action items, training. And I
yep.
like the action items being on the business. So, we use a master process roadmap. We're pulling out a piece of our master process that could be a sales pipeline, that could be an operational thing, it could be a coaching
Mm,
issue. I love that on the business side, that it's not just catching up with, what's the work happening, but what's on the business. How do we communicate together? How do we work together? So in a sales cycle, how does a client coordinator work with a coach, work with a admin to build a cohesive connection
mm,
point? So the client experiences, hey, that was really easy. I got a full view of the team and a full view of their work without feeling like it was clunky. That's the on the business type of work we need to do. I love that.
right, right. And we need
Any
to have a set
stories?
aside time for it.
Absolutely. Any stories for you that you've seen client do this well
Yeah, I had a client and he still works with me, or she, I guess, to
or
who
she?
knows who it
They?
might be. No, it's a dude. This one's a dude. And he pushed back appropriately of like, I just don't think I need to bombard my guys with an extra meeting. This is a real social guy. He's a really easy guy to work for, right? He's one of those types. And I laid out these 5 and I said, where's its home? He's like, I kind of in these 3 meetings, and where's this one? Well, we kind of dabble in that. And all of his meetings probably had 4 or 5 set meetings. All of them were an hour and a half to 2 hours a week. So you think like his job, and not everybody's in those, but they were just meeting to death. And he's like, Brennan, I don't want another meeting.
Hmm.
And kind of dissected it and said, what if you pulled all these pieces out, could that sales meeting be an hour or less? Yeah, if we pulled all that out. Okay. Could your production meeting be an hour or less without all that stuff? Yes. Okay. So you had 4 to 5 meetings at 2 hours apiece. We got all those to 45 minutes and then installed 1 1 hour meeting with all these pieces so that nothing's getting watered down, because they were struggling to recap action items. They were struggling to retain any sort of training because there was just too much. 2 hours is a long, long meeting for people to stay down,
Right.
especially in the morning, because all they're thinking about is what's all the stuff I got to do the rest of the day.
Got to
Right.
hit the
And they're
ground
not
running.
wrong for thinking that. So what we did is we kind of dialed back he didn't have agendas, and he didn't have a design leader. In every meeting, you need 2 things to start to take it to a Taylor Swift concert, right? You have to have $17,000 to get into a Taylor Swift concert. For a meeting, you need to have a written agenda and a predefined leader, right? The leader doesn't need to do the entire agenda. They just need to make sure it's followed. So with this guy, we established kind of what those agendas needed to look like, and it set up this perfect time for 1 hour a week with his whole team, because they never got everybody together, with his whole team to go through these things. And his words, he's like, I feel like we're a well-oiled machine because everybody knows what's going on now. And you could
Hmm.
argue there's a lot of other pieces involved, but the meetings are the structure that allow those pieces to thrive. So
Hmm.
that's one that he had appropriate pushback because he kind of had a home for everything. but we
Yeah.
actually added another meeting, which lowered the meeting times and
Great.
gave them clarity. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. I think I'll use this opportunity to promote our next podcast. We have a 5 meeting rotation that we use. We call it the Big Five feedback loop: executive team meeting, one-on-one check-ins, performance evaluation, and the actual department meeting, which was usually your production or your sales. We use these 5 meetings. My goal is to get my clients under 4.5 hours a week in meetings, to make sure their business runs smoothly. People know
Yep.
what they're doing. There's
Yep.
accountability. There's execution. So we do that with clients all the time.
I'm not
Thank you,
joining anything.
Donny,
This is
for
us.
your wonderful
Yeah.
insights.
Thank you, little Dickie.
If you want to know more about Business on Purpose, you can go to our website. It's businessonpurpose.com, and you can take our Healthy Business Owner Assessment. You can also look at our coaching options. We have over 115 clients around the U.S. We are very good with contractors, trades, architecture. We've done this for many years, and it's just a delight. We have a blast liberating business owners from chaos so you can make time for what matters most. So feel free to reach out to us, or you can reach out to us personally. It's not Dickie and Donny, it's Brandon and it's Sean at mybusinessonpurpose.com or at businessonpurpose.com. If you
That's right.
email Dickie, it ain't going to anybody, right? So we'd love to talk to you, and excited to be back with you next week. Y'all have a great one. See ya.
That's right. Thanks, guys.